You're watching Mountain Computers.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Mountain Computers. I've got a bit of a different video for you today, at least compared to my regular content. I'd like to talk about Google's I/O keynote that was delivered yesterday. I'll give a short summary of the noteworthy things that stood out to me, and I'll do my best to deliver my personal impressions as applicable. For those who may be unfamiliar, I/O is a conference that Google holds once a year. They invite developers and hold lots of sessions talking about how they're trying to drive innovation on their platforms. But the keynote speech, which is what I'll be covering, delivers information more in line with what consumer-driven innovation accomplishments that the company has made, thinks are noteworthy, and wants to show off. So, to kick things off, the CEO, Sundar Pichai, showed off the event's app's capability to use AR, or augmented reality, to overlay venue and event information on a live camera view on attendees' phones' displays. They touched on this AR navigation idea again later. This is something that they originally talked about last year at I/O. I think it's a really great idea that has great applications outside of just street directions. Big stores could implement a variant of this that would lead you around to items in your shopping cart list, for instance, or other event venues like sports arenas could implement it to help people find more food options that they might not be able to find on their own, or just help them find the bathroom faster. Seeing Google kickstart this initiative of getting this working and improving it is really cool, though. Sundar also talks some about Google's search improvements in compartmentalizing and organizing search results on their mobile app. This is something that I think Google is always working on, since it's really the core of the company's heritage. But the improvements were mostly things that I've already seen them have implemented, and the improvements seemed fairly incremental. The next speaker talked about the integration of AR and camera features into the Google app. She demonstrated the ability to view 2-scale models through your phone's display. The models were capable of being searched for and triggered directly from search results, too. Next was some image processing done through Google's Lens that would allow you to have popular dishes at a restaurant highlighted on a menu, as well as pull up pictures of any dish from an AR interface. It was also able to calculate a tip and split the total when looking at a receipt. The next AR trick that she showed off was live animations playing on a magazine page. I think that AR, purely as a technology, has some pretty cool applications. Some of these that they were showing off, though, are still sort of bordering on a party trick level of utility, but it would be interesting to see where Google and others take the lessons learned from these efforts. The last demo really drove home some of the potential that AR has, though. We've seen Google Translate change the language of text and overlay it in real time before, but to this they added per-word text highlighting as the assistant dictates the text. As the presenter mentioned, this helps greatly with the situational awareness with regard to the context that the content is being delivered in. After this, then Sundar comes back to deliver what is effectively an amalgamation of the functionalities of Google's Duplex and its situational awareness with Chrome's autofill functionality for online forms. They call this duplex on the web. A demonstration of it is given by showing a car rental form being automatically filled out for a pre-scheduled upcoming trip that the theoretical user would have already entered information about into their calendar for. It keeps the user in the loop during the whole process. That fact means that the user still gets to make confirmations about the accuracy of the inputs and is able to understand the decisions that the tool is making. This saves time in the same way that autofill does. It doesn't eliminate the need for user input, but its situational awareness from other Google services does at least allow it to make better recommendations, and make recommendations more often for that matter. The Sundar then introduces a segment by talking about a deep learning advancement that Google made, which impacted the size of their language processing pipeline by a factor of 200. Doing this has allowed Google to, in a practical manner, fit their entire Google Assistant locally on devices, eliminating a dependency on cloud computing, and therefore the internet, to perform many on-device and home-related functions. Google has dubbed this local instance of the Google Assistant the Next Generation Assistant. A demonstration of this starts at 30 minutes and 27 seconds through the keynote, and it is absolutely worth checking out just to get an idea of how fast this can make the act of interacting with your device, not just for things that you would usually use the Google Assistant for, but just navigating your phone in the way that you normally would. It's really incredible what a difference this makes, and huge props to Google for making this possible. It sounds like this functionality will be reserved for just Pixel devices, which come out later this year to start with, but if we see this potentially disseminate to OEM devices as well later down the line, that would be really incredible. Skipping past some stuff that, while interesting, I don't really have much to say about. As cool as that last thing that I brought up was from a technical accomplishment standpoint, I really cannot stress enough to you how excited I am about the feature that closed out this segment. So, you know how when you set a timer with the Google Assistant and it starts dinging, you have to annoyingly yell at it, "Stop dinging!" or "Cancel the timer." And the latter of those kind of sucks, because when you have two timers going, it thinks that it has to ask you which one to cancel. Like, the one that's done, Google. Cancel the one that's done. Well, Google's heard this complaint, apparently, and from more people than just me. The presenter demonstrated an alarm going off, to which he sarcastically replied, "Stop," which on its own triggered the alarm to stop without the need of hailing the assistant. This was a simple but aggravating problem that I've dealt with on a almost daily basis now for quite a while. It really felt clunky, and I am glad to hear that they're fixing it. I'll lightly touch on the next point, where Google is looking to understand more about the kind of calculations and decisions that its convolutional neural networks are making. They're trying to do this to help them actively prevent biases that may naturally exist in the datasets that they use to train their models. Without getting too political about this, could I just ask Google, could you please take some of what you learned from this and apply it to your YouTube algorithms? Enough said. Next, Sundar starts talking about something that Google kept interlacing with and driving at for the rest of the presentation, and that is that Google wants users to be more in control of the security of their data on their devices. So they've introduced a fair number of features to help with this, including the ability to automatically delete certain kinds of data after a set time span, an incognito mode for Google Search, YouTube, and Google Maps, time-constrained app access to user location data, and a deep learning training model that abstracts Google from direct access to user data, only showing them the way that the user's activity has affected the way that the model makes decisions. That last feature is an AI learning model they're calling federated learning. I think it's nice to hear Google pay attention to things like this, especially with the growing concern that some individuals have with the way that many large companies are treating their data. While I haven't necessarily been paying too much attention to other recent Keynote presentations like this made by other companies, I've gotten the impression that many of them seem to be trying to drive this point of user data security home. Now, am I accusing Google of just hype training on a trend here? No, I don't think so. Their implementations of these functionalities are too well orchestrated and thought out to be something that they just planned to present on a whim to try to keep up with the trend. So I commend them on this. Good job, Google. Next, Sundar starts talking about live caption and some other accessibility-based features that are being added to Android. Live caption is basically exactly what it sounds like. Live captions placed on screen for content playing on your device. It works on any content on the device though, not just videos, and they even show a demo of this later working without any internet connection at all. Apparently, the recurrent neural network that they use for speech interpretation to text takes up only 80 megabytes of space on the device, and this could really actually be useful for anyone too. If you like watching videos on public transit or in other situations where making sound would be considered uncouth, like in a library or a meeting, it might be a feature that's worth it for you to try out. The next accessibility feature is another implementation of that same technology whereby a phone call can be transcribed in real time and typed input can be spoken back to the speaker on the other end of the call. This they're calling live relay. Google also is making an effort to train specialized speech interpretation models for users who may, for any number of reasons, have some kind of speech impediment. This effort is called Project Euphonia. I think that it is really great to see Google trying to add some admittedly cool and definitely very beneficial accessibility features to their platform. It fits in with part of their mission statement, which is to make information universally accessible, and I think it will hopefully help a lot of people, not just to make their mobile device experience better, but just to help them experience life more fluidly. So going into this, I never thought that I'd be strapped for things to say about the Android segment, but really the features that they talk about the most tie back to stuff that I've already covered. They bring up things like situational awareness, user privacy, and accessibility. But they do cover a few new things, like teasing that native support for a dark theme is going to be added in the next Android release. I've heard said elsewhere, too, that things like system accent colors and app icon shaping may also become adjustable. The presenter also talked about the way which Google has modularized some elements of the Android operating system, which will allow future versions to install security patches and updates without requiring a device restart, so that's very cool. So next, they bring Rick Osterloh up on stage, and he introduces one of the 3 new hardware devices that Google introduced in the keynote. Google will apparently be integrating all of their smart home devices into their Nest brand name and rebadging all old products to represent this. The Google Hub, for instance, has become the Nest Hub. Does this make my Google Home Minis into Nest Home Minis? I guess, but I don't really know because they never said that explicitly. But the new device that they're coming out with is a Google Assistant with a 10-inch display and a webcam. It'll cost about $230, and I'll let you check it out more on your own if you're actually interested in it. Next, they bring up Sabrina Ellis, who introduces the other hardware devices, the Pixel A and the Pixel A XL. In a nutshell, these phones attempt to continue to embody all of the strong points that the flagship Pixel phones bring to the table, while cutting costs on some of the materials that don't really contribute to performance, like the screen glass and the body materials. At half the cost of each of their respective non-A counterparts, I think that these do a good job of striking a decent value proposition, but again, I'll let you check them out more on your own if you're interested. The last thing I'll touch on in the keynote was the medical applications segment. During the segment, they demonstrate how a deep learning algorithm was capable of delivering a diagnosis for a malignant lung-based tumor in a situation where the presenter stated that 5 out of 6 doctors failed to identify the abnormality due to its still early stages of development. Google has shown off these kinds of medical advancements before, and I think that it is a really great mission for them to be supporting. Any places where we can use technology to improve our medical industry are really valuable for helping people live longer, happier, and more fulfilling lives. So another commendment goes out to Google for that one. Good job. To wrap up, I know I really didn't have too much to say that was negative about this year's keynote, but honestly, I think that might just have to do with the fact that, in my opinion, and given the material that they chose to present, Google really nailed it this year. They did a much better job of tying things together than I felt like they did in the past couple years, and they seem to have gained back the magic that made me really enjoy watching the keynotes from 2014 to 2016. I can't believe my script for this video has reached 4 full pages. I guess there's always quite a bit you can talk about from these keynotes, but on that note, let me know what you guys thought about the keynote in the comments below, guys. If you liked the video, please consider formally representing that you did by hitting the like button. And if you think you'd be interested in any of my future content, then please consider subscribing. But that's all I've got for you guys today, and I'll talk to you next time.